Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, sponsored by the Mac Parkman Foundation, where we look at the issue of repetitive brain trauma from two aspects: repetitive head impacts from contact sports and repetitive blast exposure from our veterans in their military service, and what this is doing to the brains and the mental health of our youth, our kids, our athletes, and our veterans. And why is this important? Because this is not taught in any medical, nursing, or psychological or suicide prevention training in this country. So that makes you the front line of defense. So we have this podcast to teach you and educate you and give you that 360-degree perspective on this issue so that you can make better decisions. Today on the show, another amazing guest from down under, way down under, Mr. Tom Christian serves as the head of product and technology at HitIQ, an Australian sports technology company. In this role, they oversee the development of software, hardware, and data platforms to enhance the brain health products offered by HitIQ. With over a decade of experience in sports technology, sports science, and physiotherapy, Tom possesses a deep understanding of the intersection between technology and its application to improve athlete health and safety. Tom, thanks so much for coming on the show, sir.
Bruce, great to join you, and thanks for the intro. Very generous of you. But that's right. HitIQ, Australian sports technology company, and we're here instrumenting mouthguards and trying to create a safer place for all.
Well, I think what you're doing is amazing, Tom. But first, a little bit about yourself. How did you get here? Are you a sports player, or did you suffer some concussive hits? What got you involved with this company and this technology?
Yeah, I've been involved in sports technology myself for a long time, over a decade. I originally started as a failed athlete, and then figured the next best way to be involved in sport is to somehow service it. And then my career sort of started in athlete tracking solutions, so companies which developed GPS technologies and provided those to the league. So thinking more broadly around sort of running injuries or injuries which are related to sport itself. Spent some time doing that and supporting teams doing that. And then I was still quite young at the time, so I thought, I might pick up another degree. And I studied physiotherapy down in Sydney at the University of Macquarie, which was great. And from there, I jumped across and worked at a national rugby league team called the Canberra Raiders for about 7 seasons as a sports scientist, as a physio, and then ultimately sort of working in this job in called it was basically performance technology and data lead. So if there was technology within the team, or if there was technology within the sport, it was my responsibility to track it, turn it on, turn it into a report, which was able to be digested by coaches who wanted lots of information or not much information. Also service performance departments who also had a different appetite for information, and essentially generate sort of risk profiles and athlete status day to day to put our men on the field. In that time at the Canberra Raiders, we've been playing around with instrumented technologies and brain health, particularly instrumented mouthguards for a while, and got to have a good understanding of what the technology was, and jumped back across to sports technology at HitIQ, where I've been looking after the product and the technology stack for about the past 11 months there now. So it's been very exciting. It has its fair share of challenges, like any technology does. But we're pretty bullish to provide a solution which captures brain health in a quantitative and accurate way, and provide information which hasn't necessarily been well understood or well digested before. So that's sort of what's led me to the podcast this morning, Bruce.
Wow, man. Well, we also know that, I don't think most of our readers know that there's 2 forms of rugby, and the Canberra Raiders are what they call rugby league,
Yes.
Which is opposed to the Canberra Brumbies.
Yep, that's right. The ACT Brumbies. Yep.
Yeah. So I used to have a company in Canberra a long time ago. So we used to go to but there's a very I don't even know how to explain it, but the dislike between the two types of rugby is very intense.
Yeah, there is that does exist. There's certainly some people prefer one over the other, and that's quite clear.
But I would say that the Raiders, I mean, I would say that league rugby from a head impact perspective is far, not far, but I think it's they have a more substantial exposure than union players. Just is such a fast moving game.
Yeah, I mean both games, Bruce, are very combative, and they're very gladiatorial, and it makes for great entertainment. That's for sure. The athletes are amazing specimens, but certainly rugby league is definitely, I would argue, and there's probably a bias from working in the game for such a long time. Um, has a more physical one-on-one component of tackle and collision, whereas rugby union there is more, there's probably more collision and uncertainty around the ruck and when players are on the ground. Look, there's some research which is starting to come out now, which is actually quantifying that exposure between
Really?
rugby union and rugby league. Yeah, but again, this technology is still relatively, in the grand scheme of things, of sports technologies, new and novel. And the good quality research is starting to follow. So, look, hopefully in the next few years, there will definitely be a better understanding of sort of what are the differences between the two. But in terms of a data set, rugby union probably has a little bit more on it at the moment.
Really? Wow. Well, I mean, so let's talk about technology in sports. We don't see a
Yep.
lot of technology in sports. Okay. We see it on the TV, AWS can look at the golf ball flying through the
Mm.
air. It can calculate the speed of the guy with the football, but we don't see a lot of technology in the sport itself. So why do you think that is?
Look, I think there's a commercial reality to sports technology and the cost, and uh, uh, technology like this initially can be really, really expensive to roll out. But at the end of the day, the leagues and the sports are starting to have a greater appetite, which is great for these technologies. And it only puts athlete health and safety, player health and safety, at the forefront of their product, which I think is really their prerogative, which is great. But going back to your question, Bruce, like sports technology, there is a barrier to entry, and especially at the professional level, there is a serviceability to technology, which is important to consider, and it can be a difficult thing to get right. And when technology breaks, technology is awful, but when technology works, technology is wonderful. So they're probably the challenges which sports see with technology and new technologies, and certainly some of the barriers I've had to overcome in my time as well.
Absolutely. So, how has the acceptance been of your technology so far? On the pitch, are you fielding this with with teams that are, like professional teams, semi-pro, uni? I mean, where as the acceptance of your tech? I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the tech first. So, what does HitIQ do so that
Yeah.
our audience understand?
Yeah, no worries. So HitIQ, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Australian sports tech company. We've existed since 2015. And at our core, we're a hardware, software, data company. So hardware meaning that we manufacture a smart mouthguard. So that means that we put a flexible circuit board within a traditional mouthguard. And what we're looking to do there is measure head exposure and head movements. Software meaning that we have a bunch of software developers under the company, and we're developing software so devices can communicate with the hardware we manufacture. And then finally, which sits under our third pillar, is being a data company. So we're collecting head impact information, head impact exposure, and being able to map and understand for teams and for leagues, and for now, parents and athletes themselves, through this technology, which has been a really exciting, call it strategic shift for us in the past 12 months. So in particular, we've primarily focused our research efforts in the elite sector for the past decade. But now last year we struck a commercial agreement with Shock Doctor, who many of your listeners will understand are the world's largest manufacturers of mouthguards. So we actually instrument those mouthguards with our technology and retail a boil and bite consumer mouthguard, which in Australia you can purchase off the shelf. And certainly we're looking to expand that offering globally in the next few months. So, this technology, which has primarily been reserved for the cashed up leagues or the cashed up sports teams, is now available to parents, athletes, coaches, more minor community sporting leagues as well, to get an understanding of athlete health, safety, player health, brain health, head impact exposure, what's going on in those contact sports, and provide a level of peace of mind and clarity as to what the head's been exposed to. And from there, we can sort of direct and guide people to immediate care if they require it, or further education to head impact. So it's a pretty busy, it's been a pretty busy 12 months. It's been a pretty busy sort of what I was almost 8-9 years is a company, but it's been a great journey.
Well, that's amazing because, the shock doctor you can't buy in America. I mean, when that technology came out, it was digitized back in the day, correct?
The instrumented mouthguard, like back in the
Yeah.
day, you couldn't buy off the shelf. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you were limited to a custom mouthguard scan, which we then would go back and manufacture in our headquarters down in Melbourne, and the lead times on that just made it prohibitive for someone to have access to this technology. So now with Shock Doctor, the mouthguard itself sits within a Shock Doctor chassis, and you can essentially buy it off the shelf, or it gets delivered to your post box, and you can have an instrumented mouthguard within 15 minutes of opening the box.
Is this and you're going to make this available in America?
That's the plan long term. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Entry into America. It's a great market with great sports and great people. So we want to allow our brain health technology to be accessed by everyone. Obviously, you have to go through the right regulatory steps and the right sort of commercial frameworks to get set up. But yeah, certainly America is on the horizon.
I mean, you'd be welcome here. I mean, it's like everything that we have no commercially available, technology to monitor head impacts. I mean, the teams have access to some football
Yeah.
helmets that go on, and I think they have access to some of the mouth guard technology, but a lot of it, well, all of it is off limits to parents. And of course, I've got my own conspiracy reason for that, here, because, a lot of people don't want to see this information because when people become aware of head impacts, they tend to become a little bit more risk. But to your point,
Yeah.
this is all about player protection. This is about making the sport safer. And we'll get to some of the changes that we need to make because, we all know what these impacts doing to brains of our kids. That's why,
Yeah.
we have a podcast now on this stuff. But talk to us about making, the sport safer. So what are we doing with this technology from a player and a team and a coach perspective that's making the player safer?
Well, like this technology, obviously, certainly here in Australia, there's the principal guidance and guidelines and acceptance is recognise and remove. And recognise and remove of a concussion is what is educated to players, parents, coaches, sports administrating staff and care staff on the sidelines. But one of the problems with the recognise and remove protocol is that you're recognizing signs and symptoms which you can't immediately see, and you're also recognizing signs and symptoms probably from a sideline which is, 20, 30, 40 yards or meters away from what's actually going on. So whilst everyone is buying into this and it's a good framework, this technology actually comes into to recognize what you can't see in terms of quantifying head movement. And the technology through the accelerometers and gyroscopes within the sensor board itself is quantifying those head movements and head impacts. And processing and displaying the data in a way which is providing an extra level of surveillance and an extra level of information which hasn't previously been available before to young athletes and parents. So really, it's a quality of care product at the end of the day, and it's providing, like I said, a safety net for things which you can't necessarily or you haven't necessarily been able to measure before. So that's where the technology sits in day to day or on the weekend when our kids or even young athletes or athletes alike are playing collision or contact sports.
Now, it's very important because parents need to know what's going on inside that brain. And I think that's a little bit of the pushback from the tech on the sports side is that they just don't want parents to see that. And I think that, for most of us, as we move towards brain safe sports, which is, eliminating the contact in our junior leagues, you're still going to have concussions, right? I mean, you can play flag football, no check hockey, touch rugby, and you're going to have collisions, and you're going to you're going to want to monitor your kid, right? And nobody. So I think how's the conversation going with the sports teams right now, or maybe on the parent side, where they welcome this, because and I know in the States here it's been seen by the sports just won't share the data with the parents at all, and I think that from your perspective, if we can work with the sports to eliminate and reduce mitigate contact, and it doesn't make the sport go away. We're still going to play brain safe sports, but we're still going to have brain activity. We're still going to have those, and parents need to know when those bumps take place because the kids aren't going to say anything.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'm certainly here down in Australia. We're seeing a better appetite for this technology broadly, particularly at the community levels. Parents are screaming out for something which provides them confidence, and this is what this technology aims to do. It aims to plug that confidence gap which is occurring. Like there's here in Australia, and I'm sure the problem is global, Bruce, but there's so many young kids turning away or being turned away from sports because of the risks which are inherently they are exposed to. Now, we're not here to say kids shouldn't be playing sport. Sport is the most wonderful thing a human can involve themselves in, particularly as a young athlete. The benefits of learning teamwork, resilience, the camaraderie, and the lifelong friendships, and the mental health benefits and physical health benefits which come from sport is something which we want to keep pushing and keeping people playing and kids playing. And when parents and when loved ones have concerns around the sport exposing children to potentially dangerous head injuries, like technology needs to insert itself and act as a tool which can provide confidence to maintaining the benefits of sport, which I just highlighted. So another point you just touched on is as well as the data. And I think originally this technology came onto the market, particularly when it first came onto the market. It came on and it potentially just scared everyone. It was like, oh, do we really want to know? And over time, as
Right.
as there's been maturity and as there's been some good science to catch up, and plenty of validation out there to say that this technology is accurate from a lab perspective, accurate from a field perspective. We're certainly seeing a shift in medical advisory panels, medical committees within local sport, professional sport, taking the technology as a solution more seriously, because they can now use this information to actually safeguard their product or safeguard their athlete, rather than actually thinking, oh well, this is a litigation issue. Really, it's of our view and of the view of a lot in the community now that if this technology has not been rolled out and providing some type of surveillance, then the issue is the fact that people aren't using this technology when it's so accurate and reliable to provide a surveillance intervention. So There's certainly an appetite which is growing. There's certainly been a welcome change towards what the technology can offer and do in terms of increasing participation in sport and increasing safety surveillance in sport. So we're really excited about that, and we're really happy to be part of that conversation as well. So um, I think there's some exciting times ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a dramatic shift in, parents becoming aware of the risks of contact sport, and
No.
these are risks that are just unnecessary. Okay, brain trauma is brain trauma, and with our children and developing brains, it's just unnecessary. But it does not preclude the use of technology to surveil our children because our children are active all the darn time. I don't care if they're in soccer, if whatever. I mean, they are active all the time, riding horses, motocross. It doesn't make this, and that's what we're pushing for is that technology is great. But unless we change the sport itself to lower what we now know scientifically and definitively is the problem, which is repetitive head impact, and
Mm.
then we're not going to have what we all want is safer sports. If the kids are going to play, we're going to end up with the same level of mental illness and the same level of suicidal ideation in our professional athlete community because we're not solving the problem. And I think your technology right now can raise awareness of that problem, and would be a huge part of the solution coming up, which we're seeing right now as parents are like, look, you take care of my child's brain, or he's going to be playing tiddlywinks, right? I don't know if
Mm.
you know what tiddlywinks is in Australia. It's like a little board game.
Mm.
It's like it's a little card game, right? With little thing. They're going to sit at the card table because that's going to be their sport, and we don't want that. And we're seeing so many parents now saying, You're not playing any of these sports unless I'm assured as a parent that you're going to be okay because we love our kids,
Yeah.
right? So I honestly think that your technology is part of a huge avalanche of change that's coming into sports. That's going to make them safer. It's going to keep the safes healthier, and it's going to keep them out of bankruptcy too. Because once the lawyers
Mm.
figure out how to put all this together, that they not even the NFL could survive a class action lawsuit, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
Man,
Yeah, and that always finds its way into conversation. But I think one of the other things which is worth mentioning is as well is in terms of with delayed care, as we know, we're starting to understand that delayed care is resulting in greater risks of negative long term health outcomes. And technology sits as a solution, such as the instrumented mouthguard, to pick up on that. And um, we also understand that if there's repeat head trauma or if there's repeat head impact, whether that is subconcussive or concussive, like one injury can lead to another. The subsequent risk of musculoskeletal injury in lower limbs doubles if you've had that exposure. So it's the technology is offering a solution to actually safeguard the rest of the body, and like I said, keep people in sport longer. And it's really designed on this like fit, play, check model. So you fit your mouth guard, you play with your mouth guard, and then you're checking your data. So it's a big player safety tool. One of the things which we've actually built into the app, Bruce, which I think is quite unique, is obviously everyone wants an immediate insight and immediate information these days. You jump on your phone, there's news pushed to you, there's friends sending you messages and whatnot. That's the same platform with our technology in terms of we get the data and it gets pushed to you through our software and our hardware solutions, and we're also offering an immediate avenue to care if we think the data displays a problem, which is really great because continuity of care is around brain health and concussion can sometimes be really challenging. You and I could have the exact same way of getting a concussion playing sport on the weekend or having exposure to a head impact injury, and our care pathway could be totally different and our advice could be totally different. So what the app and what we're trying to do at HitIQ is actually democratize that care and provide a platform where people can use our product and use our services to get personalized, high quality care, which in turn or long term actually provide some better health outcomes because they don't get lost within a health system which throws them around with different understandings of the current, consensus guidelines and the different understandings of, or the most up to date understandings of brain health research. So we're also working in that area to democratize that and offer it through a phone where it's instant through telehealth.
And that's amazing because we know that if we delay care, right? I mean, number one, a lot of the problems that we have is because we either delayed care, or we didn't know that the brains have been injured over these times. And so, to your point, surveilling for those big hits is critical because you have second impact syndrome. You have, and then like you said, with the brain's damage, you're a lazy player. You're going to tackle incorrectly, or you're not going to be responding to the game as well as you could. So there is no doubt that technology like this is a crucial part of how we move sport into safer, and how we surveil our children, because they're always, like I said, they're always out there. So for the benefit of our audience, tell us, how does this work? Like, you got a mouthpiece, like what happens if you tackle somebody? What goes on inside the gizmo here, man? What's taking place?
Yeah, perfect. I'll sort of walk you through it, Bruce. So, you buy your mouth guard and you fit it to yourself, and you go through a calibration sort of set up within the phone. So the mouth guard and the phone talk to each other. When you go to train, or when you go to play your game, you're putting your mouth guard in, and it's on, and it's essentially recording. It's recording three major things to provide information to the users. So firstly, we're recording off accelerometers and gyroscopes. Peak linear acceleration, so think about G-forces running through your head backwards and forwards. We're looking at rotational accelerations, so think about the brain moving around left and right in the brain in a rotational fashion. And then the other metric which we display in our app is a thing called damage, which is not it's not a great name for a brain health metric. However, it stands for it does have some science behind it, and some pretty robust science behind it. It stands for diffuse axonal multi-axis general evaluation, which is a metric out of Virginia, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's being used in car crash dummies to assess essentially head forms through those traumatic events. And what it's doing, it's looking at it's a metric and looking at the direction and duration of accelerations in the head. And from that, there's essentially a score which is estimating a brain strain within the head during those contact events. So the mouth guard itself records a whole bunch of other metrics which we sort of process in the back end, but that information is being displayed on the phone to the user, the athlete, the parent, after the session. I think the really clever or the really important thing to point out here is when you collect head impact information, it sits in a raw file. But what we do as a company is that head impact information goes up to our cloud-based algorithms, which we've been working on since day dot. We have over 70,000 verified head impacts, which we compare the data against and return it back to the user. So we've got some really great confidence and sensitivity to the information which we're sending back to the user. And then from there, they can understand their session, they can understand the exposure of head impact or repeated head impact they've had. And then we're sort of providing recommendations, but not clinical guidance as to what to do next. So it really, as I sort of described so far, it's acting as a surveillance solution for athletes and parents. It's certainly not a diagnostic. This technology is not a diagnostic technology. None of the instrumented mouth guards in the market are diagnostic technologies. But certainly with information comes understanding, and with greater information comes greater understanding. And one day, this technology will really sit within the generalized decision-making tool belt of lots of people when it comes to looking at mild traumatic brain injuries, as awful as it sounds.
Wow. What do you at what what's the G-force that registers a hit? Is it something that is that something that you set? Can it be set, or is it something that's been predetermined?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bruce. So but not necessarily a hot topic within instrumented mouthguard land, but it's
Yeah.
certainly something which has been robustly discussed, challenged, reset, and set over time. We've got a trigger at 5G, which is what we sort of recognise a head impact at. We've had experience in turning that up to 8G, 10G, 13G, turning it back down. That's just as we understand head impact, as we understand data, and as we sort of get better with algorithms over time. But currently, we have a threshold set at 5G. That's well recognised from a literature
That's amazing.
perspective.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. And I
and
want to
then
dive into that a little bit because right now, folks, for you that are listening, the NFL's opinion of a concussive force is 95 Gs. Okay. And there's been a lot of discussion, as Tom said, about what is, that G force. And of course, the sports leagues want it high because they don't want to look at, damage, and parents want it, they want to know what's right. And then, we've had numerous studies where the average hit right now on the football field is on or about 25 G. 25 to
mhm.
30 is usually the range of most studies. And that's a big hit. So the great thing about your technology, Tom, is you are literally recording about every head hit of importance, which is amazing. I mean, hats off to you, man. I mean, I was expecting you to say, I ain't telling you, or no, it's 40 G's or something, man,
Uh,
because I mean, dude, you guys are actively trying to protect people, man. That's great. I mean, you're a
we got to
technology
be
yeah.
Yeah, we got to be really. I think as a company, like I think all companies in this space, we have a social badge to wear, which is that transparency badge with exactly sort of how we're measuring things and what we're doing with data and what we think it means. And if we want to be a safety solution, we need to be really transparent with that. So that's
Mm.
one of the really key I suppose directions we try and lead with. So yeah, it's set at 5G. Anything which is above 5G, we're recording. Look, by no means am I a biomechanist or a mechanical engineer, but 95G exposure to the head is a huge impact. They do, and
That
they do exist. But is that the right threshold? I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a lot of good there's a lot of good reason for something to be set at that level at the moment. But again, we're a company which is developing technology to understand this issue and provide solution in a really in a really calm and sensible environment, and we're trying to add to the picture. We're not trying to disrupt the picture. We're
mm.
just trying to improve the outcomes for everyone. And we engage with leagues regularly on what the right threshold is, what the right research to do is. We don't stand on a hill and particularly beat our chest and say it needs to be done this way or that way. We're a part of saying, hey, this is the technology. How we have an idea how it should be used, but how can we work with you to make you as parents or as leagues comfortable with this technology? Because ultimately, it's a tool to enhance your product.
And Tom, this is where the conversation needs to go, okay? Because you can understand from the league's perspective, you got one of your top
Mm,
players, and gosh, if I had to take him out over every 5G hit, the guy'd never play, never see the field, right? And so, yeah, they want to protect the team, they want to protect their record, and I got it. The issue is that with technology like yours, we all know it's all about total aggregate exposure. So if we were to remove contact from these brains before they started to mature, take the contact out of practice. I don't know about what goes on in professional rugby in Australia, but I'm part of a movement here to take the contact out of practice here in the rugby. I'm actually having a meeting here because it's unnecessary brain trauma. On the pitch, you got to leave it on the pitch, right? And there is
mm,
risk. Okay. We play rugby, we jump out of planes in the military, and we know there's risk. But the thing is, how do we mitigate that risk? And when these kids start, the problem is that by the time they get to the leagues, every hit, their brains are so harmed that,
mm.
every hit, doesn't matter if it's a 95G, a 25G hit or anything, the brain just stays swollen, stays inflamed. But if they were to start later on in life, with less contact during practice, they could take all the hits they needed in every professional game for the rest of their life. And with the treatments that are out there now, they would be they'd be okay. They'd be a little dinged up, but they'd be wealthy. They'd be able to enjoy their money. And it's all comes down to when are the leagues going to wake up? All leagues, right? And say, look, if we approach this right, we're not going to worry about. We're going to want your technology because now we want to protect the player because we know we know we need him. We got to protect this guy. But the thing is, it's for the professional leagues right now, right? It's it's a little bit too much too late. But I think by making your technology part of this wave of change, where we're lowering concussive trauma, and then on game day, man, they're hammering it hard. And then all the other areas that we can use your technology. I mean, the military's been looking at mouthguards. I mean, be a good conversation there. But I do absolutely agree. The time for this right now is now. We do not have anything commercially available for parents in this country that to track the head impacts that their children are experiencing.
Certainly, I totally agree with you, Bruce. And certainly, another one of the things I've been seeing recently, particularly in Australia with the professional leagues, is certainly how much contact. To your point, how much contact in the week is enough, or how much contact do we want to cap it with? And there's been some ways which they've tried to quantify it, but it's had some holes in it. And really, what it's actually shown is if you want to actually quantify or capture this information, you need to use a valid and reliable tool, which is an instrumented mouthguard. And there needs to be transparency around teams using how often they're using the technology to somewhat create a level playing field. So, we're welcome to those conversations as they're happening. We've been a part of some of the conversations as they're happening as well to provide a solve there. And I again, probably another thing which comes to mind, Bruce, is when we're looking at contact in practice, like how practical is it to stand there and count tackles or count every time the head hits something, even if you're recording it on a camera and looking back through performance analysis software, like it's just too laborious. So this technology actually sits as a non-invasive quantification tool, which does a lot of work for the leagues and actually speeds up decision-making and player health and safety and care models more than anything. So yeah, like I said, there's been a change in attitudes over the years, and the appetite is a lot better for the technology now at the professional level, but also providing this technology to players, parents, coaches, to also coach sport and play sport with a level of confidence it's all moving in the right direction, and we're excited to influence this space, and we're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, man, we'd love to have you guys come up for the conference this year, man. So where are we at in when can we buy this in Dick's Sporting Goods here up in America, man? Where we at?
Hopefully, Bruce. Hopefully, there's an announcement soon, as we always tease.
Nice.
Look, we're global ambitions is certainly what the company wants to achieve in the long term. We understand the markets where there's people crying out for this, and we understand the problems. It's great now that we have the ability as a company to scale this technology, because that's been the biggest handbrake on offering technology. So we've got that now, and now it's all about understanding the boxes and the hoops that we have to tick and jump through, and getting people excited about a new technology which can safeguard and provide a level of comfort and care which has never been offered before. So, look, Bruce, I'll tell you what, I'll text you one day, and you'll be the first to know how
I got my HitIQ right here, man. I'm getting ready to dial this in, and
exactly.
I'm gonna go put my boy's helmet on and go run into a wall and see what happens, man. But but this is amazing. I mean, literally, and I'm not making this up, Tom. Every technology that I've tracked in the last 15 years that's come to market to be commercially available has disappeared, gone. You had things that bolted onto the helmets, and the helmet manufacturer said, "Oh, that violates the warranty, so you can't screw them on there," right? Then you had these little things on the side of the head. So there's a market here, and the market's growing as parents are more and more aware of what their kids are being exposed to, and looking for reasons to say, look, you're going to play flag football until high school. And then we're going to go find a team that doesn't practice all day long like the NFL, and we're going to protect your brain, right? Because, it's just it's all these kids are going to have when they grow up, man. You look at most of our professional athletes after their career, they still got to use this to do something with it, and they got
Exactly
to
right.
keep moving. So I think, this is an amazing piece of tech, and I can't wait to see it up here in America. So, very excited about this. So, as we close out, let's tell us about HitIQ. What's going on next, man? Where are you at? How do people find you? Right.
Yeah.
And if there's any research papers or studies that you've been participated in or that are available on the net, man, we'd love to know where our audience could get them.
Yeah, no worries, Bruce. So obviously, HitIQ Australian company. So if you want to knock on the door, you got to jump on a flight to Australia, and we're
That's
down
a
there
long flight.
in South Melbourne. But for with the benefit of technology, as we've been discussing, www.hitiq.com is our website. You can find out more about the technology there. I mean, what's on the roadmap for us? Oh, it's longer than Santa's wish list. But I think the exciting thing, Bruce, is like this technology has now really picked up, and it's now moving really quickly. So there's solves into how we can make the mouthguard more powerful. It's how we can, improve battery life within the mouthguard, and those engineering challenges which we're looking to overcome. In terms from a software perspective, it's how else can we display information which is in a really palatable way and easy to digest for all people who are engaging with our product, whether that's children or grandparents for a certain degree. It's that solve. When it comes to research, there's heaps of research out there, and research in instrumented mouthguards has been good, and it's picked up. One of the things which I'm liking in the research space at the moment is, finally we've gone away from, hey, this technology has been applied to a team or applied for a sports league and done a retrospective study and said, okay, these are the exposures which athletes are exposed to. It's like, okay, well, that's very good to understand. It's a very good place to start. But let's start seeing research which actually potentially correlates or potentially, breaks new ground on brain health and how we can improve the management or the care of head impacts. We've done some research down at Monash and Deakin University here in Australia through Stu McDonald, who's doing a lot of work in blood biomarkers. Now, I'm sure there's some people who may listen to the podcast and reject the blood biomarker or not know what blood biomarkers are, but essentially it's looking at proteins within the blood after impact and what the blood profile is. And there's some nice work coming out from Stu, which is showing some correlations between the higher head impact and damage metric with blood biomarkers such as GFAP and NFL. So there's certainly some research to look up, interrogate, and become congruent with. So I think that's an exciting space for research. But yeah, Bruce, a technology company, we got to remain agile. We sort of follow the market whilst leading the market with technology innovations and software innovations, and certainly keeping our finger on the pulse to understand what the market wants and what the research is demanding is sort of the intersect I'm at the moment to help sort of steer the company in the right direction from a technology roadmap perspective and entering new markets. So I think that's the spiel, Bruce. I think if people want to find
Good
out
spiel.
more, we've got plenty on LinkedIn, we've got plenty on our website, and we've got plenty on X or Twitter, as formerly known. So you can find us anywhere. You just need to put in HitIQ and brain health, and we'll return a positive hit for you.
And folks, you really need to put that in there, because I'll tell you, this technology makes it to America. It's a game changer for parents, because you will know when your kid's, been impacted. And I think that this is an amazing advance, and I can't wait to see it here. And Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to getting you up here for the conference. And I'm going to be wearing this puppy here pretty soon, man. I just got to put it all together. I've been kind of busy right now, but we'll get it done. So thank you
Understandable,
so much.
Bruce. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great talking, articulating, HitIQ, our product, our solve. And, I look forward to the products finding its way into many more males in the future.
Absolutely. Well, folks, another great episode of Broken Brains, man. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we want to bring. Remember, don't forget to get your free book. For you Australians, I'm going to change all the Z's to S's because I know you guys don't use those Z's. We're going to get it down there. If you like the podcast, please share us. Let people know all about us. Find us on YouTube, like us, share us on Instagram, the whole 9 yards. Don't forget, on 10th March will be big mismatched socks for Mac Day. Our son was colorblind, could never match his socks. So we have thousands of people take pictures and post them on there to remember an amazing young man who kind of got all this going. Till next time, please take care of yourselves. God bless you all. Remember, you and your children only have one melon. Please take care of it, and this can help you. So we'll talk to you later. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time on Broken Brains.